faces. So, so now it's going to just be me and Juan on the screen. So we'll go ahead and get started. So today's session is Soul Session Student Leader Toolkit, and we'll be focusing on the social justice and diversity resources. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Juan to give you all a brief overview of what we're going to be chatting about today.
All right, thank you, Michael. So as you can see on the slide here, we're going to be going over a couple of different topics today. One is really, why did we develop this toolkit? So kind of the reasons behind that. Definitely focusing in on how your organization, can utilize the toolkit, to kind of help serve the organization and kind of help run the operations and also like the programming potentially. As well as how your organization can contribute to this toolkit. We definitely want it to be, as Mike said in the offset, like a fluid kind of thing where we can definitely have student input and feedback to kind of help really evolve this into something that is both helpful to students, but also contributed and created by students. Sorry, 1 second. And then definitely, our soul's commitment to you all and definitely, driving that message forward. So with that, we'll start off with reasons for developing the toolkit.
And then as we transition to the next slide, I just wanted to include and briefly explain this quote by James Baldwin, who was an active leader during the civil rights movement. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be faced until it is faced. Nothing can be changed until it is faced. And I like this quote because it reminds me of, if we do nothing, we are complicit. And once we start learning and once we start talking and once we start enacting change, that's when we are actively working towards changing various systems. So now I'll go ahead and pass over to Juan to give a brief overview of reasons for developing the toolkit, part one of the toolkit.
Thank you, Michael. And the first part is really kind of like, how can we best, provide information for student and student leaders, a location or a central resource for you all to be able to access, best tips, best practices. So we really wanted to kind of condense, because across our staff, we have various years of experience, working in the department and on campus, working for student organizations. And we really wanted to condense all, the plethora of years of knowledge in a format for you all to be able to kind of review and get, so those best tips, those best practices. So that's kind of really like a fundamental aspect of kind of developing this toolkit. Definitely along with that, compiling resources that focus on organization management and programming. So anything related to running and operating your organization, all the way down to executing programs and events for your organization. And along with this, we also want to provide resources, external resources to support, your student organization and your efforts. So whether those be resources that are internal, within not only within UCLA, but within the greater UC campus community, or not even related to university, other kind of external resources that could really be beneficial to you all. And as you can see, the toolkit is now available. You can find that on our Soul www.soul.ucla.edu/toolkit. And we'll be doing a kind of a live demo on that in a little bit.
Awesome. So Juan briefly explained the first part. So I'm going to touch upon the second part, which is really what we're going to focus on today. So as Juan mentioned, this toolkit was designed to provide and serve as a central resource for student organizations, not only to serve them as they exist as an organization, but also to facilitate opportunities for learning. And we felt that it was really important to provide you all with the tools to have conversations around social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that we can all enact change here at UCLA. Within your organization and also in the outside world after your time at UCLA. So we wanted to develop a resource for folks to engage in dialogue, really for people at all levels too. We recognize that folks are at different levels in terms of learning about various materials, learning about different identity groups, learning about different issues that affect certain communities. So we really wanted to make it accessible for anyone to really engage with the materials. We also wanted to provide a space where students can navigate various resources that revolve around social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion at UCLA. And as Juan mentioned, we'll go through the website and we'll show you some of those resources that are available here on campus, that are both spaces, programs, and offices, but that are that also include different workshops that have been hosted by different programs and offices within the UCLA community. And we also wanted to provide resources for external learning through that. So we recognize that UCLA has great information. UCLA has put on great programs and workshops, throughout the years. We also recognize that there's information that is available outside of UCLA that can spark conversation and that can also engage you all with the learning that will be taking place. So we'll go ahead and transition to the next slide. And this next slide is how your organization can utilize the Student Leader Toolkit, which is really important because this was designed with you all in mind. So with that being said, after I go through this, we'll go ahead and go through the website briefly just to kind of show you how you can best utilize it. So when we were all thinking about how to design the toolkit, we really wanted to put students at the center of it. And we really wanted you all to be able to engage in dialogue with each other, because we felt like that's a great way for students to learn, is by talking about various issues that have come up, not only this year, but historically. And so when we talk about dialogue, there are different ways you can engage in dialogue. So for example, organizations that exist to, let's say, create an opportunity for folks from from a certain major to come into community and learn about how to excel in your major and also career opportunities. But it's also important to draw connections to the work your org does. So if that's the work you do, how can you incorporate learning opportunities for social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion? Can you have conversations around like gender representation, for example? And these are things that the toolkit can help you develop. So to develop those types of conversations. Also developing ways that your organization can implement what has been learned. So if you've been able to have discussions around those topics, what are things you can implement and actively do within your org? How can you hold yourselves accountable to being able to continue that work? And also collaborating with UCLA departments and offices. So when we go to the website, you'll be able to see the different UCLA offices and departments that are able to collaborate with student organizations to provide workshops, trainings, or even host dialogues. And we really believe it's important to emphasize collaboration and connection, because that's how the work can be done to improve our campus climate and also to understand how your organization can contribute as well. Also learning more about identities and cultures you're not familiar with. So we have various articles that we've compiled that not only represent different issues that folks face, but also learning more just about different identity groups that we may not personally know about or that we may not personally be a part of. And that's one of the ways of expanding your knowledge. And it's also another way to be able to contribute back to those different groups. Also tips for engaging in discussion about identity and experiences. So as a student organization, you have folks that are coming from all walks of life, different kinds of backgrounds. And we have different resources that are included in the toolkit to talk about those things, to talk about your identity. How does your identity manifest itself in the space you're in? And also your experiences and how those experiences contribute to your membership within the org, but also your presence here at UCLA. And then also reading as like a group type of activity, reading different articles, watching videos, listening to podcasts, and talking to your organization about that. So maybe having an assignment where everyone reads an article about how to understand different viewpoints, for example, and how to acknowledge and also present your own viewpoint. So things that can kind of help expand your toolkit as well, because you're coming in with different areas of knowledge. So engaging in articles, engaging in watching videos, and engaging in listening to podcasts can help expand your own toolkit as well, help you have those types of discussions with your organization to help build knowledge. So with that being said, Juan, I'm going to go ahead and have you transition to the SOL website. Cool. So this is our homepage. Lots of great resources there. I can go on and on, but I'm going to show you how to access the toolkit from our website. So if you just go to sol.ucla.edu, you'll be taken to our homepage. We've added the toolkit as a menu navigation bar in our website. And so if you click it, it'll take you to the entire toolkit. And so this is the web page where the toolkit exists. So we have our purpose for creating it, our goals behind it. And then we have part one, which, as Juan mentioned, is resources for organizations to host digital programs, but also to just manage their organizations in general. So those are all resources that I encourage you to explore. We do have a recording of Juan and I actually going over this during our Days of Soul event. So we'll also be including that on our website once this video that we're recording right now is available to view. But what we're going to focus on today is the second section, which is social justice and diversity resources. We've highlighted our reasons for creating the toolkit and why we as an office feel this information is important to share. And we've also included our support for student activism and campus organizations as they have enacted positive change at UCLA by collaborating with different entities. So we recognize that students have brought about a lot of great change at UCLA, and we want to encourage you and encourage you to continue making those positive changes. And then also we've mentioned our USAC, our Undergraduate Student Association Council, and our GSA, which is our Graduate Student Association, which exists to amplify the voices from folks that come from the undergraduate student population and the graduate student population. So you as the campus organization can utilize these resources to help drive your org's mission and to spread various forms of information around campus, and they help support that. The second section, this second main section here, the social justice and diversity education section, is where we have identified UCLA departments and services that exist on campus. So these are some of the, this is a list that our staff compiled, and we recognize that this might not be everything. And I'll mention a little bit later about how you can contribute to the toolkit, which is something we will emphasize, but we recognize that there might be things that we've missed. So feel free as we conclude our presentation, if there's something that, oh, they missed or they can include that, feel free to let us know and we'll let you know how to share that. And then our third section within this is second section, sorry, is the internal resources section. So this is where we've identified various websites, videos, and articles that exist within the UCLA community. And so we've been gathering these over a period of 6 months. Over the summer, there was a lot of great information shared from CAPS, for example, about processing racial trauma, as well as anti-racism support. So these are great videos that your organization can definitely watch and engage in discussion about. We also have videos from the UCLA Black Alumni Association, who hosted Dr. Jane Elliott, which was a fantastic conversation, as well as the UCLA Black Staff Election Debrief. And then we've also compiled a few articles from different organizations within UCLA that talk about these issues of social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the last section is our external resources section. So this is a really big list, and we considered external resources basically everything outside of UCLA. So we've also compiled information from our sister campuses as well as UCOP that have great resources to be shared on these topics. We've also put together some websites that share different information that is not limited to just to one group or to one source of information. So there's anti-racist resource guides that have great reading materials. There's opportunities to learn more about different identity groups too. And we recognize that this is not all that exists. And like I said before, we'll mention how you can share your resources that you've personally benefited from. We've put together videos and webinars that our staff has personally taken part in. So we've participated in some of these different video and webinar series, and we've enjoyed them. I personally, myself and a couple other staff did the Black Minds Matter series, which was a really rewarding experience. And we learned about the Black experience essentially from early years to adulthood. So that was one thing that I personally learned a lot from. We've put together some podcasts also that are accessible and free to all folks. And I've listened to these, and I think some of our staff have listened to them as well, but I've listened to these all in here. Personally, one that I really like is In the Thick. I like it because it really breaks down politics in a friendly way, and they really do a good job about identifying and discussing how certain groups are impacted by current politics and even historically. So that's something that I've personally benefited and enjoyed listening to. Our last section, which may seem short, the reading list and articles, but if you click those links, they're really long. So there's a lot of great articles and resources on here as well. And we as a staff also contributed to this list by identifying our own articles that we felt students could benefit from and could present learning opportunities. So I'll let Juan click that really quickly. This list is through Box. So currently you will have to use your UCLA credentials to log in, and it is available to review and download. And once that's loaded, awesome. So we felt that these were articles that present great information and that can provide great learning opportunities. If you scroll to the top really quick, Juan, I'm sorry. Cool. So there's an email listed that you all can send your resources to that you've personally benefited from or that you've enjoyed learning from. So we have a dedicated email called Soul Toolkit at soundnet.ucla.edu. We'll be showing it again later in the presentation, but this is a way your organization can contribute. So we've identified various categories that have a list of articles that can help expand your knowledge in those areas. So allyship, anti-racism, and we've also identified other areas for learning that coincide with identity groups and some of the issues those identity groups face. So I encourage you to download this list. I encourage you to share it with your membership and find ways to engage with these materials because like I said, there's lots of great reading materials. The folks that contributed to this list have read some of these articles. I've read these articles and I learned a lot, especially about groups that I personally don't identify with, which is really important because it's taught me a lot about their experience and ways that I can support them. So thank you for showing that part, Juan. And again, it is all linked through our Toolkit website, so you can access this at any time. But like I said, you currently have to use your UCLA logon. And we'll go ahead and go back to the presentation. And once we return, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Juan to briefly discuss how your organization can contribute to the Student Leader Toolkit.
All right, just waiting for it to load up here. But yes, how to contribute to the Student Leader Toolkit. So as Michael mentioned, there is an email address that was created to help, capture that feedback that we really want from our students and the community. And we definitely recognize that it's important for students to be able to give that feedback because not every student leader is the same. Everybody comes from a different background, so everybody does have a different perspective. And it's really crucial for our work and our development, to be able to hear from different stories and really get those different perspectives that we probably aren't so familiar with. And so we definitely want to keep, this list growing. We definitely want this to be as relevant as possible. So with that, we definitely value your feedback. And if y'all are looking to contribute, again, the email is soultoolkit@sayonet.ucla.edu. You'll be able to email that, send any articles, any podcasts, any links that you have, any books that you may have read, anything that you want to add or contribute, please let us know. Just go ahead and send that email. And then those submissions will be reviewed by a solo advisor, just making sure that those links are still valid, making sure that everything looks good. And if everything, looks good, we'll definitely go ahead and add that resource into the toolkit.
Awesome. And one thing I just want to highlight really quickly, if we just go back one more slide, sorry. I wanted to briefly mention how this is student-centered, and one of the ways we maintain that student-centered perspective is asking for feedback before we even launch this. So while we as a staff came together to put this together, we also sought out student feedback. So we identified and selected student leaders who represented various backgrounds and experiences to provide feedback, whether that's on adding additional resources, such as like articles or other forms of media. And then we obviously made those changes based on the feedback. So as Juan mentioned, we want your feedback moving forward about ways we can expand this, whether it's through articles, submissions, podcast submissions, videos, any type of feedback we welcome and will be reviewed by us. But I just wanted to mention that. students who are involved in this process, because this was made for you. And then next, we'll go ahead and transition to Soul's commitment. And so we've done a lot of great work throughout these last, since summer really, about discussing why the toolkit's important and how we can make it a reality. So these are just some of the things that we've done over the last couple of months. We've collaborated with campus partners to provide workshops during our Days of Soul event, which is held in the fall quarter. And we've collaborated with folks from CAPS to deliver workshops around anti-racism and community care for student activists. And these are actually available to view on our YouTube, and those are linked on our toolkit as well. And we've engaged in dialogue and exploration and learning with campus leaders around UCLA to have discussions around anti-racism and how to incorporate this into our work. And we've also had discussions amongst us as a staff about our experiences and where we come from and what we bring to the table. And we've also looked at our mission statement and vision statement to see how we can make it more inclusive and how we can kind of highlight the work that we want to do and what future impacts we want to make. So those are things that we've done, and this is ongoing work. So this doesn't necessarily stop here, but this is kind of our way of showing you that we are invested and we're here to learn alongside you. And then our last slide, our last slide for Soul's commitment is next steps. So as a student organization, we encourage you to talk to your Soul advisor about how you can utilize the toolkit effectively. I'm sorry if my voice is if it's cutting out, I'll start over. But this last section for Soul's commitment highlights how you as an organization can keep doing the work. So talk to your Soul advisor about how you can utilize it. We recognize that folks are coming from all levels of learning. So have a conversation with your Soul advisor about how you can incorporate this in the work your organization does. Identify for how it fits into your organization's mission and goals. So we mentioned those different talking points that you can have that center around dialogue and the information that's provided in the toolkit. And how can you, and also identify ways how you can incorporate these resources into your future dialogues that you have with members, trainings that you might collaborate with different campus partners on, and programs that you might host as well. So there's different ways you all can utilize this regardless of what type of organization you are. There's much to be learned and there's much to include in the work you all do. And my very last slide is this quote that kind of helped guide me and helped guide us as a staff. So I'm just going to read it really quickly. So diversity asks, who is in the room? Equity responds, who is trying to get in the room but can't? Whose presence in the room is under constant threat of erasure? Inclusion asks, have everyone's ideas been heard? And justice responds, whose ideas won't be taken as seriously because they aren't in the majority? And diversity asks, how many more of a certain group do we have this year than last? And equity responds, what conditions have we created that maintain certain groups as the perpetual majority here? And inclusion asks, is this environment safe for everyone to feel like they belong? And justice challenges, whose safety is being sacrificed and minimized to allow others to be comfortable maintaining dehumanizing views. And this is a quote from D.L. Stewart, who's a professor at Colorado State. And this really kind of helped guide our thinking and intentions behind this toolkit. So I wanted to show that. But with that being said, I appreciate you and we appreciate you for taking time out of your day for learning more about the toolkit with us and how you all can utilize it. Our last slide has a link to our evaluation form. So if you have any feedback, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, let me know, let us know. We're always looking to improve. And the link to the toolkit is there. And we will make this available to view after the recording has concluded, and we'll put it up on our website. So with that being said, I'm going to stop the recording